Well, g'day, Max here again. Welcome back to the shop. So this episode on our R8 arbors, we complete all of the external grinding with the tool post grinder. So I think we've covered a fair amount with the tool post grinder. I think there's a lot of people, quite a few people do have these tool post grinders, but never actually seen anyone else use one. So we've covered parallel grinding, taper grinding with the compound. This episode we go into grinding this tapered form. There's a parallel and a taper which have to be ground together. So we'll show you how to do that. And we've also covered how to successfully grind a face. So side wheeling the face with your tool post grinder. So hopefully you people that you may own these grinding machines, hopefully you'll pick up on some of what we've done if you've had troubles. They can be a troublesome thing to use to achieve good results, but it can be done. So now at the end of it, I've just given the lathe a really good clean down and pulled the way wipers off just in case any of the crud's got stuck underneath them. And I will change the coolant, so I'll pump the coolant out and then that coolant will go into my bandsaw. So as it's not as critical on a bandsaw, it doesn't matter. So the coolant's still good, might have a bit of shit in it, but be fine in the saw. So I'll swing you around, we'll have a quick look at the lathe and enjoy the rest of the video. So the lathe has copped its better than normal clean down process, and we've even popped off the way wipers and cleaned underneath them just in case any of the grinding materials had got underneath them. It's well worth doing. So she's had a really good clean down. I normally only do that once a year, but it's something you really need to do considering the amount of grinding that we've just done on this machine. Okay, so we have some face grinding to do on our boring head arbor, so we have to grind across here, and the face mill arbors we'll need to touch up on here. So I'll show you, swing you around to show you what we have to do there. Okay, so here's our grinding wheel. So what we've done is we've relieved this section of the wheel across here and left the outer edge proud. So we're slightly saucered in here. So when we're cutting, when we're grinding, we're only grinding on the very corner of the wheel there. So we'll get a piece set up and we'll take a trial cut. We have a face mill arbor set up here. So I've marked an area around here with a blue Sharpie, and that's the area we're going to grind. This other area inside is below that level for relief. So I'll take a trial cut and just see there's a distinctive pattern, a crisscross pattern that we're looking for, and if we don't get that, it means we've got to adjust generally means you've got to adjust your centre height either up or down on your tailstock to get that crisscross pattern, and then you're cutting on 2 points of your wheel at the same time, not just on one side of the wheel. So we'll take a trial cut and see what happens. Okay, let's pop it out and see what we're looking at. Now I can see we're getting radial lines in one direction only. We'll see if we can get you a better view of that. Okay, you can see here, you see how the lines, you can faintly see them, how they're going around in that pattern. We should have the patterns, we should have that pattern coming the other way as well, so the lines crisscross around. So we only have one set of lines radiating out. We should have two sets. So that tells us that we're either too high or too low in relation to being square to the grinding wheel. So let's blue this up and we'll find out if we're too high or too low. Okay, so we've re-blued up. What I'm going to do is just bring the wheel up, right up next to it, and just slowly just rotate the wheel by hand backwards and forwards. I just want to get a mark. Right. So all I want to do is just touch it. So we take the part out and we have a look, and we can see quite clearly we're contacting there but not there. We should be contacting in both places. So you can just faintly see that mark there. Hang on, where's it gone? There it is, just there. That's where the wheel's contacting. So that means our centre at the back, this centre here is too high. So we've got to drop this down. Now, unless you've got a lathe with a fair bit of use on, your centres will be high. If it's worn out, your lathe, your centres will generally be low. The new lathe starts off with a centre a couple of thou higher in centre height. So what we've got to do is, if we shim up the rear of the tailstock, that should have the effect of dropping the front down a little bit. So I've cut two pieces of paper, and one will go under the flat way and one will go on top of the flat way, and one will go on top of the V-way underneath the very rear section of the tailstock. So we'll put these in and we'll have another trial. So with our paper under here, this should have the effect of dropping the front of the tailstock, therefore lowering the centre height. Okay, so we've got our part back in and we'll take another trial. Okay, now we can see where we're touching on the top. So that tells us we've gone too far. So before we were touching underneath, now we're touching on the top. So I'll take half of the paper out and we'll have another trial. We'll see where we're sitting this time. Okay, well that's looking good. You can see now we've got a mark top and bottom. Yeah. So the wheel is perpendicular vertically to the face that we're grinding. So I'll take a trial grind and this should give us our expected crisscross pattern. And that's looking good. That's a beautiful crisscross on that. We'll see if we can get a better shot of it. Okay, we'll try the boring head face and see how that comes up. We might have to adjust it again because the centre length is slightly different. So that may change the settings, but we'll give it a go. that's coming up. We've got a fair bit to come off this one, so we might run a bit of coolant on it. It's looking okay across there. We've still got a way to go, a bit further than I thought, but plus we've also got to grind this, so we can grind this at the same time. We're not far off there, so we'll just continue on a tad more. Okay, we'll take that out and have a closer look. Okay, well that was a pretty big ask for a little tool post grinder to cover that surface and a face grind. But you can see we've got a beautiful crisscross pattern. So that means all our wheel was running dead in line with the face. Okay, on our previous face grind we discovered we were grinding a very slight saucer shape, about 2 thou deep towards the centre than on the outside. So we've just done an adjustment on the grinding head, and we've just moved it round 1/2 degree, and we're going to take another trial grind and see if we can't get some of that out of it. Okay, I might just put an indicator on that and just see how we're travelling, because we don't want to take too much, so we can only move the grinding head a little bit at a time. But as you can see, it is taking it off in the right area. Okay, we have our indicator set up here, and what we're looking for is where we've just ground the edge, that we're not starting to go anywhere below where the old surface was. So we'll go a bit further and we'll just monitor it. It's just a bit of a trial and error thing, but we are taking, in comparison to what we have to take off, a good amount off here, and it's looking alright. So we'll just grind across a bit more and just see if our saucer reduces. Okay, that's looking alright. Okay, we'll set our indicator back up and we'll have another measure. So we're on 0 on the inside face. We drop off 1/4 of a thou, 2 or 3/10 on the centre, and then we come back to 0 on the outside. Sorry if it's a bit wobbly, handheld, I can't help it. So what in effect we're getting a 0 reading on the outside, a 0 reading on the inside, and just a very slight 2.5 hollow in the centre here. So to be absolutely sure, let's give it one more cut across. What we're going to do is we'll hand dress the wheel, just in case the wheel is starting to get a bit dull here. So we'll hand dress it and just take a last cut, and that should do it. So we've only very lightly touched on the very outside piece, and we've just reduced the width of the area that it's cutting. So we'll just have one more trial grind. Okay, we'll just double check that again with the indicator, just in case the wheel was a bit dull and that was giving us any variation. Okay, well that threw a spanner in the works. So after giving the wheel a light dress, that 2 or 3/10 hollow that we had in the middle from the last grind has shifted to the outer edge. So what we'll do now, we have no option but to try and chase it out. So I'm just going to do a very slight adjustment on the grinding head. I'll just bring the head around a fraction, so it takes a fraction more off the inside than the outside, and we'll do another trial grind. Okay, so we've barely moved the head around 1/4 degree, if that, so we'll blue it up and take a trial grind, and what we're looking for is to take 2 to 3/10 more off the inside half than the outside half. Okay, we'll set the indicator up and see what that's done. I tell you what, we've come up pretty well here. I think we've nailed that. Reminds me of an old signs you used to see in the large engineering shops over here. Near enough isn't good enough. Well, this is spot on. So we'll swing you around and have a look. Alright, so going from inside face to outside face, back to inside, absolutely spot on. No needle movement there that's worth chasing. I mean, we're looking maybe a tenth, if that. So that's a good result. And we still ended up with a reasonable crisscross pattern on the end. That's looking good. And we get to make use of the new indicator stand, the Stephen Gottswinter indicator holder, and that's proved to be quite a handy little item to have to use on this project, to be able to fit it into tight places. That in conjunction with the long stylus on the federal indicator. So if I get it in the right light, our crisscross pattern now is nicely defined. So that's come up really well. So we'll just check our contact onto the boring head, which this arbor here will mount. Just put a bit of blue on in a couple of spots. Absolutely perfect mating. So, very good result. Alright, I jumped over onto the ER40 arbors for a while, and what I've just done off camera is I've OD ground all of the areas here, so they're down to 50mm diameter. And the threads, I've ground the threads back as far as the threads go to 0.1mm under 50mm, so they're 49.9, and they're ready to go back in the lathe to complete the screw cutting operation. Now this last one is our bent one, so I took this one here under 50mm just so it all cleaned up all the way around. So this one here we're going to probably chop him off around here, and I'll repurpose this section in another fixture. So it's a shame to waste it, so what I'll do is I'll make up a base plate for it, and it'll be a fixture we can use in the milling machine or the tool and cutter grinder. So, but anyway, we'll still have to complete that. So after the screw cut, then our last operation is to ID grind the tapers for the ER40 collets. So over at the lathe here, this particular one here is going to be, it's a slitting saw arbor. Now this one had a bit of a bow in it too, but with all the critical parts are fine. I don't normally on the other ones haven't ground this area, but I have on this one just to clean it up. And the other slitting saw arbor I had to do the same thing. We just have a section on the end here that didn't quite clean up. You can see it. There it is there. It's only a small, it's only a small section, so that's nothing. So what I'm doing now, we've just ground the nose of the tool parallel. It does nothing, that area, it's just decorative, as this area here does nothing. It's just the body of the tool. So what we have to do now is blend the two diameters together. So I'll just set the compound on a bit of an angle, and what we'll probably do is I'll just dress a slight bit more radius on this side of the wheel, and that will should give us a better blend line. So we're just going to use an old piece of grinding stone block, and just give this wheel a little bit of a radius. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so with our transition area here, we've hogged most of it out. There's still an area that hasn't quite cleaned up, just there. So we'll keep going. And we've hogged most of that out with the corner of the wheel. We did grind that radius on that corner to do that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to dress the wheel. We're going to dress 50% of the wheel width at that angle, which is this angle here. So that will allow us to parallel grind all along here with half of the wheel. Then when the corner of the wheel in the middle where the angle changes that we're going to dress into the wheel, then we'll start coming back up this way. That way we'll get a good finish on this area, and it will all blend in as one and look like a good job. Okay, looking at the wheel from above, that section there will grind the parallel section, and the angle we've just dressed into the wheel here will come and grind the tapered section. So as we're grinding along, we use the traverse along with the carriage. I'll show you. And then when the centre of the wheel hits that point there, then we start traversing with the compound slide. And we'll get a nice finished angle that looks like it's all as it should be. Okay, that worked out okay. We're able to do a constant grind all the way along and then up the taper. So we don't have any ugly blend lines or anything like that. It's a nice smooth joint there, as it was a continuous cut all the way along. We were just using the other face, one half of the wheel to do that, and one half of the wheel to do that one. So this part's, I think this part's finished. Yeah. This has to be ID ground as well. So I think now we'll head over and we'll set up for screw cutting on the ER40 collet chucks.